Hi there, Barry Eaton. Welcome to Radio Out There. Nice, calm music. But that's not the way a lot of people are. Lots of anxiety, lots of fear, lots of all sorts of things. Maybe trauma. What is trauma? Let's talk to Judith Richards. And she'll talk about not only trauma, but how to heal trauma. Do you have to take a long time? Well, that and lots of other questions this week on Radio Out There. Judith, absolutely lovely to see you. I mean, we talk on the phone a lot, but it's great to see you. How are you?
I am fine and or dandy, Barry. How are you?
Fine and or dandy.
Yes.
Can't you be both?
Yes. Definitely. No, I'm terrific.
Terrific. That's fantastic. Now, we haven't talked on my program for a while, and I know I have quite a few new listeners. So what I thought we might do is to just a little background about you, because you have something called the TRTP, and that talks all about trauma and healing trauma. And first of all, how would you define trauma? Because I think things have changed so much in the world lately. Has trauma evolved or changed or got worse or what?
My understanding of trauma, Barry, is a little different from the mainstream, from the mental health profession. In the mental health profession, a trauma is something bad that happens to you, generally a one-off. Unless it's complex trauma, which is a number of things happen. And they're big, big things. Trauma is actually not actually what happens to us, but the wound of that. So you can have two people go through a horrific event and one will walk away and get over it quickly, and one will have a trauma wound so deep that it impacts every area of their life for the rest of their life. So it's the wounding. And it's being alone in our distress that is the biggest risk factor in that trauma wound. The way I look at trauma is I don't even say the word trauma, Barry, because people think trauma, they think war, they think refugees, they think torture, huge natural disasters. When I think of trauma, I say distressing events. Because sure, it can be those huge catastrophic events, and, you know, people can die from 1,000 paper cuts. It can be the grade 1 teacher who kept humiliating you in front of the class and telling you were stupid. It can be the parent who says, you know, you shouldn't have been born. It can be the high school bully. You know, it doesn't have to... Or
just feeling unwanted, maybe.
And just feeling unwanted. And very often, Barry, it's not what happens to us, but what doesn't happen. So especially in childhood, it's not necessarily what happened. You know, most parents don't go out of their way to damage their children. There are some who do, but it's not the norm. Most of us as parents want the best for our kids and want our kids to feel loved and wanted, etc. And a lot of kids grow up without their basic needs, not of food, shelter, clothing, education. You know, often those are met. But the other needs of being seen, soothed, safe. So seen, what does that mean? Seen as who we authentically are. So we don't have to work on the relationship to not be rejected by the caregiver, usually a parent. Seen for who we are rather than what we achieve, what we do, because some kids are given attention and love for the report card, for the sports award, for what they do rather than who they are, which often leads to perfectionism, etc. Soothed, to have comfort readily available. You know, when someone comes to do TRTP, the Richards Trauma process, the process I developed, there's a questionnaire. And the most telling question and answer on that questionnaire is, who did you go to for comfort? And so many people say nobody, or the dog, or my bike. So to have comfort readily available is a basic child need, and safe, not just physically safe, but safe to have an opinion, safe to show how I feel, safe to bring a problem. So seen, soothed, and safe. These are the requirements in order for a child to have secure attachment.
Mm.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. A couple of other bits and pieces when I had a look at your website, because it says here, healing trauma by rewiring the unconscious mind. Now, going back to maybe the bigger aspect of it all, and a trauma, maybe to people that are suffering from traumas brought on by watching the news on TV or something. Now, what does that go both ways? That people who are in charge, control, in power, can create that trauma into the unconscious mind, and that is what they're doing. And we are suffering as a civilization, as an individual, as a group. Are we suffering from that kind of trauma?
Yeah, well, it builds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's cumulative. And the thing is that a lot of that distress from what world leaders are doing in our current world, what happens is we have that stressor, but our reaction can be that.
Yeah.
You know, some people see the same thing and their reaction is that, but some of us, that. Why? It's because that stressor turns on any past events vaguely like it that have not been properly processed and put in long-term memory, and the door safely closed and it's over and I'm safe now. But that current distress can turn on all these other events that have never been processed and put in long-term memory. Instead, in my model, and this is where my model differs, they're stored in the unconscious like a videotape loop that's never brought to an end. So that current stressor can turn on anything vaguely like it from our past. That thing that happened when I was 7 and when I was 15 and 32 and blah, 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 blah. So we're not just reacting to that, we're reacting to all of this. So our reaction is that instead of that.
Right. For those people listening on radio, Judith is holding her hands up at the present time and you can't see it. So
sorry.
Have to imagine. You have to describe it. I have more listeners on audio than I do on video.
Perhaps if I restate that, Barry.
Thank
so
you.
we might have, so something might happen on the news.
Right.
And our reaction can be over the top, greater than what you would normally expect. So one listener to the news on the radio might have a smaller reaction than somebody else who has an absolute over-the-top reaction.
Yeah.
So that's when my hands were small and large. And so this smaller stressor, it's not small, this moderate stressor can create an over-the-top reaction because we're not just reacting to what's in front of us, but all these other things that have happened in the past that gets turned on.
That's right. And when you add that flood of unconscious stuff there to the stuff you have already in your unconscious from childhood or wherever, you may end up with a very large luggage bag full of problems.
It's like a cupboard, Barry. Let me explain.
All right.
So something happens and we think, well, I'll just get on with it. And we chuck that event in the cupboard. And then something else. Yeah, well, I'll just get on with it. And we chuck it in the cupboard. And we do this again and again and again, thinking, well, they're in the cupboard, the door's closed, they're not going to impact me anymore.
You can't see them, out of sight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it gets to a point where the cupboard's pretty full. And it starts overspilling. And then it starts impacting us in our everyday life. It's not that it's gone, it's just that it's in the cupboard, if that makes any sense.
That is a very, very good analogy. I like that. A cupboard full.
A cupboard full. It's not mine. I borrowed it from Blair, my general manager. So thanks, Blair.
Thanks, Blair. Good on you, mate. Now, healing and rewiring the unconscious. It makes it sound like some kind of digital arrangement, but how do you go about rewiring somebody's unconscious mind?
Good question, Barry, as I've come to expect. All right. So our unconscious runs us. We think that our conscious mind, that voice in our head, is in charge. It's not. Recent studies have shown our conscious mind only works about 5% of the time, 5 to 10% of the time.
Really?
And we think that's in charge. It's not. It's our unconscious. Our unconscious runs every chemical reaction in our body, every electrical response. It runs our patterns of thought, emotion, behavior. It runs our life pattern. We all have a pattern in our life. It makes decisions before we do. And then we use our logical mind to justify what that decision is. So it's our unconscious that runs everything. And the stuff that's happened to us, Barry, it's not stored in our conscious mind.
No.
It's stored in our unconscious. So if it was stored in our conscious mind, we'd be able to say, oh, well, Black Saturday bushfires happened in 2009. That's a lot of years ago. I'm just going to get on with it. Or that happened when I was in grade 1. I'm now 73. I think it's time to move on. It'd be great if that's how it were. Or here's a pattern that I'm doing all the time. I'm just going to decide not to do that. But you think about trying to control what's going on in the unconscious, that 90 to 95%, with the 5 to 10% of the conscious mind, the maths just doesn't work.
No.
To use that tiny part of the mind to control that big area, it doesn't work, which is why talk therapies that work with think differently are not so successful. So what we do in TRTP is we work with the unconscious directly, because that's where all the stuff is. So we speak directly to the unconscious in the language of the unconscious. What's the language of the unconscious? It's amazing. With just 2 words, just imagine. We have access to the unconscious mind. The conscious mind, the critical facility, steps aside. We can imagine whatever we want to imagine. And the thing is, Barry, as humans, we have this extraordinary capacity. Our body and our unconscious cannot tell the difference between what's real, what's actually happening, and what we're imagining. It can't tell the difference. So we use this facility to speak directly to the unconscious, stepping through various imagined scenarios, which the unconscious and the body experience as real, to step people through to 2 places: empowerment in regard to what happened that was terrible, and taking the body and the unconscious to the place of it's over and I'm safe now.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole physiology reboots. I won't go into the physiology of it, but that's what we mean by rewiring. And so what happens is change is made at the unconscious level. We don't have to try.
No. Well, now, does this involve you talked about logic before and that left brain. Does this involve maybe developing far more of the right brain, the creative side of our brain?
Yeah, because that's where the creative side and consciousness, which is outside our being.
Right.
But yes, the creative, the imaginative.
Because some people are far more left-brained and other people are right-brained. I mean, I look at my astrology and I have a balance almost between left and right brain. So
I've always said, Barry, he's balanced. I've always said that.
Oh, all right, I'm trying to fall over. But now you made me forget what I was going to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the balance between the left brain. Some people are more left-brained and some people are more
thank you very
right-brained.
much. Yeah, good, thanks. So what about those people? Because we're all different. Everybody's different. You have to approach your rewiring the unconscious according to that individual and their makeup, their physical, emotional, and mental makeup.
I would challenge you on that, Barry.
Now, I ask, do you have to?
No.
No, all right.
Not in my process. And I have, and I work, like recently, I had this gentleman client. Most of my clients are men, interestingly, but really smart guy. very successful, very wealthy, lives in New York, and really intelligent guy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so let's call him Michael. Michael, you're an intelligent bloke. He said, yeah, I am. I said, and if you could have figured out and sorted out what ails you, which is causing you your anxiety, your phobias, etc., you would have done it years ago because you're a smart guy. Yeah. All of this that's causing your distress is not in your conscious mind, it's in your unconscious. It's time to use a different part of you to access that unconscious, the creative part of you. This is time for you to put your supreme intellect on the shelf because that hasn't worked. Time to use a different part. And like you say, Barry, the creative part, the emotional part.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, good. Now, on to something else in here, and that is grief.
Sorry?
Grief. G-R-I-E-F.
Grief, yeah?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
After my various hospital visits recently, every now and then I have a bit of fun. So, grief. How do you separate grief, which everybody goes through, grief of a partner, a family member, whatever. How do you deal with that?
Once again, using the imagination. The process that I use in TRTP, the Richards Trauma process, actually comes from the third time I was dying. And at that time, I was in hospital. I was dreadfully ill. And I was hooked up to all different tubing and in a terrible, terrible way. And I became aware of my mother rubbing my back, saying, it's all right, darling, this pain will pass. And I couldn't move to actually see her.
Yeah.
And that was fine, except my mother had died about 15 years previously.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing, my father appeared at the end of my bed. And that's fine, except I said to him, this is really perturbing. He said, why? I said, because I'm your daughter, you're my father, I'm 39, you look about 26. He said, yes. He was there in his war uniform. He set up bomb disposal in New Guinea in the Second World War. So he had these gold and red and purple bombs, huge bombs on his sleeves. And he said, yeah, but you can be any age.
Mm.
And he said, and he apologized for not being a good father. And he said, you've got it all wrong. And I said, what? He said, you think that hanging on to your grief keeps us connected, keeps you connected to your mother and I. That's not true. It's our love that keeps us connected. And nothing can sever that connection. So it's time to let your grief go, let your pain go. That's not keeping us connected. And you think I've gone. I couldn't be a good father when I was there. I just wasn't, and I'm really sorry. But you can't see I'm helping you now. I've been helping you since the day I passed. I'm here. I'm helping you all the time. Yeah. And I haven't gone far. I'm a breath away. I'm a whisper away. Speak to me. Speak to your mother. We'll talk back. We're here. And you don't have to worry about your son.
And not only that, but they know what is about to happen. Last year, as you know, I had a stroke. That was in April of 2025. Now, I was speaking with a medium 2.5 weeks beforehand, and she brought my father through, and his final message was, and I have it on tape, don't worry, Barry, I will be there to help you heal your heart. And 2.5 weeks later, I had a stroke. So that just confirms everything you are saying.
Yes. And so what happens when someone who we love dies, there's this big hole in our life, this big vacancy. They have gone.
Yeah.
And that is so distressing. They've gone. So what we do in my process is reconnect the person, the current living person with the person who has passed,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a conversation. It's not
Brilliant.
the last conversation. It's the first of many, many conversations, but to fill that hole with the person's actually here. They haven't gone far. And I've had people with even catatonic grief referred by psychiatrists who are reconnected with their loved one or ones, and the pain's not there anymore because they're right there.
Yeah. Now, just a little, before we move on to something else, a little point here. As you know, my partner, Judy, died in 1997, and she came back several times. And for my second book that I wrote called No Goodbyes, it was revealed to me that grief is an important part of everybody's life process because it starts our journey towards our own passing. And it's part of everybody's life. So to grieve is not unnatural. And that,
not unnatural.
So how do you incorporate that into the way you are dealing with grief? Where do you start? Where do you stop?
Well, when you reconnect the current living person with the person who's passed, a lot of the fear disappears.
Good.
Because the person hasn't gone anywhere. They're here. Like I have a client who's still, she goes for a morning walk around the lake and talks to her twin sister who passed. She said, I talk to her out loud. I don't care. They laugh and they joke and they carry on. And the fear is gone because it's not a big deal. It's just stepping through.
Yeah,
and I've died 3 times, and I can tell people it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I chat to my grandfather Harry all the time, and I've just finished writing my memoirs, and the first chapter tells of how he helped me amazingly. I won't go any further. You'll have to read the memoir, all right?
You have to read the book.
I just have to go publish it yet. But anyway.
I look forward to that, Barry.
Yeah, we will. Now, let's talk about a couple of other things there, because we chatted earlier in the week, and one of the things we wanted to talk about was you have to feel it to heal it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that way, but you have a different attitude.
It's a pervasive belief, Barry. You have to feel it to heal it. You have to sit in the emotion. Well, I didn't like it the first time.
No.
I don't want to go back there. It's not true. We don't have to feel it to heal it. And a lot of therapy is about going back into the very distressing event or events that have so wounded us. And that can be incredibly re-traumatizing. Just retelling our story, what do we have to do in order to convey what actually happened? We have to go into our rich imagination and relive it. So if I say to you, Barry, describe to me your front door, you would, in your rich internal world, go and stand outside your front door and have a look
already.
at it.
I'm visualizing it, yeah.
I'm just realizing mine needs a little wipe down. We have to go back and relive an event in order to convey information about that event. So even in retelling our story, we have to go back into it and re-experience it. And this can be terribly re-traumatizing and can set us back. So with my process, we don't even want the story. Don't go back there.
All right, but what happens if somebody is really upset because a broken love relationship, all right, marriage, whatever? Do you not go back to when they were really in love to start there? Or do you just pick it up from where they are right now?
We go to major distressing events within the marriage. So this is a 3-step process. It's usually 3 steps over 3 weeks, 3 sessions, longer sessions, about 2 hours. So what we go to is to healing where those big events of distress happened, and turn off the distress that are around those big blow-ups or those big events, so that the person can speak about them and there's no distress at all. What this does, because, as I was saying earlier, okay, say you're going through the end of a relationship and your ex says or does something. And once again, you come to this, and I'm using my hands. I'll stop doing that, Barry. Once again, we come to, here's something that's distressing. And our reaction, our response to that, whatever this ex is saying or doing, our response to that can be far in excess of what's logical for that small stressor. And that's because that thing that my ex is doing right here, right now, in what they're saying, what they're doing, is actually turning on all these past events that have never been stored in long-term memory from earlier in our relationship and other relationships I had before. So I'm not just reacting to what my ex is doing here in front of me now. I'm reacting to that. Turn off the that. And we're in a much more calm space because we're just responding to what's happening right here, right now, and not to this historical stuff that goes back and back and back even to childhood. Wow. So small stress or small stress response. So we can be much more logical and calm, and it's not nearly as distressing dealing with what's going on currently and bringing it to an end.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, one of the other things you wanted to raise was it takes quite a long time to heal, a lot of people think. Now, I guess that depends on the individual, but from your point of view, does it always take a long time to heal something that's very deeply buried?
No.
Oh, okay.
Shall we move on? No. Okay. So let me.
Next question. Sorry about that.
let me speak to that, Barry. I often work with people who have been in therapy for decades. You know, and I recently worked with a gentleman who'd been seeing a psychiatrist twice a week for 16 years.
Oh my God.
He was a very wealthy, successful man. So he had the money. And obviously, you know, this psychiatrist was doing very well from that, thank you very much, in New York. And this man's big issue was, as a boy, his dad used to, sexually abuse him and deny him toys and friends. And this was a big deal, and it had been impacting him all his life. He was nearly 50.
Not surprising.
A few days after we turned off the distress around his father, he was at church or synagogue, wherever, and he was walking out the door. He turned to go out the back door to the car park where his car was. He turned around, there was his father, surprisingly. I said, what happened? He said, I stopped in my tracks and waited for the rivers of sweat, waited for my legs to give out, waited for the shaking, waited for the nausea. I said, go on. He said, well, then I waited some more. I said, yeah, and? Well, then I waited some more. I said, come on, get on with it. He said, and I looked at my father and I was just bored. And so I walked by him. I said, hi, Dad. I went out to the car. My wife was having conniptions saying, have you taken a bottle of Valium or something? Are you okay to drive? Let me drive. And he said, no, it's just boring. And I said, let's call him Matt. Matt, I said, I told you, you'll know you're done when it's just so boring. He said, yes, but I didn't believe you. So that's big stuff. Okay, it doesn't get a lot bigger than that.
No.
But it can also be small stuff. You know, nothing ever really happened. And that's the point. You know, a client who nothing big has ever happened, but they have anxiety. They have abandonment issues, big abandonment issues. It's not because of what happened to them, but because of what didn't happen happened to them, which is what we talked about earlier, those childhood needs, and they don't stop at childhood, to be seen, soothed and safe, to have safe harbour. That's the key, to have safe harbour, but we can go there in a moment. And so we dealt with the distress around this client growing up in a household where the parents were great people, really good people, worked hard to provide for the kids and everything, but emotionally unavailable, critical, using criticism to motivate the kids rather than encouragement. So what did that kid grow up with? And the programming goes in those first 7 years. And so what did that child take on? That I don't matter. Emotionally unavailable parents. Well, obviously I don't matter. That I'm actually not very valuable. I'm garbage. I deserve to be treated like garbage. I deserve to be ignored. The people who are supposed to be there for me will not be there for me. I can't rely on them. I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone. And the thing is, with that trauma wound, it's being alone in our distress that causes that wound. And so this kid growing up, it's not safe to love or be loved because the people who are supposed to be there for me are not going to be there for me. This kid grows up, I can't rely on anybody. This kid can grow up to be hyper individual, not accepting help, not asking for help. No one's going to be there for me anyway. And they'll have difficulty in relationships because it's not safe to love or be loved. And with your conscious mind, you can go, wow, this person's fabulous. This is the one. I'm going to do whatever is required to really nurture and nourish this relationship, to make it safe and intimate and wonderful. Great. With that 5 to 10% of the conscious mind, go you. But if the unconscious in those first 7 years has taken on the programming, it's not safe to love or be loved. Anyone who's supposed to be there for you will not be there. Well, the unconscious has taken on the idea, well, I'm going to get you out of here. It's not safe. So there'll be unconscious sabotage. For whatever the goal is, the conscious mind decides on, like, I want to get rid of this anxiety. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll spend the money. I'll do whatever it needs to be done. And if the unconscious is going, no, it's not safe. I'm keeping you safe with your anxiety. I'm keeping you at home. I'm keeping you out of the car. It's not safe out there in the world.
Yeah.
I'll keep you out of the world.
And a lot
we
of
have
people
to get
feel
the
like that.
we have to get the unconscious and the conscious first of all in agreement. It's now safe to make these changes. It's now time to make these changes, and then you're cooking with gas. Is that relevant these days? Then,
well, in some countries, yeah.
Then you've got a laser beam that'll cut through metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
let's go laser rather than gas.
Let me throw something at you. And that is, how do you accept the fact that we bring back from past lives issues to deal with? And some of these may be I won't use the word karma, but something that we have agreed to before we come back. I've written about these sort of in my books, that we agreed to come back and face for one reason, for 400 different reasons. And this is part of our life's mission, shall we say?
It's a good question, once again, Barry. I don't have any actual proof of that, but I know that in one of my death experiences, in talking to my grandmother on the other side, it was, you haven't got there yet. There's more for you to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not going back. No. And I still, these days, Barry, look in the mirror sometimes and go, what were you thinking when you agreed to this?
Well, that's everybody's individual little, I hate the word journey, but their little part of their road trip of life, shall we say. And there's no universal answer for that, is there?
No, there's none. And so, is it true? Is it not true? But
Well, it doesn't have to be
Seems
blanket.
true
I mean,
to,
it might be part of what we've
yeah,
agreed to go through in this lifetime for the development of our own soul, and also to help other people sometimes. We agree to have certain things happen because it helps other people and some of the stuff they have brought back from past lives.
yes. Yes. And how I came up with this process, which lots of people ask, is I had a ridiculous life with lots of very extreme trauma, which ended up with me going insane. And when I say insane, I mean really insane. In the small town I lived in, there was a small shopping strip, and I lived above one of the shops, and I would often be found. I was a fixture of the town, walking up and down the street, talking 1,000 miles an hour, saying the same thing again and again. The kids called me Mad Beanie Lady because I wore a beanie. Mm. And I figured out how to fix myself. I stayed away from pharmaceuticals. I stayed away from the mental health industry. And I figured it out. And people saw me go from this Mad Beanie Lady, which some of my friends still call me MBL. I don't know that it's respectful, Barry, but it's good fun. And people saw me go from MBL to me in a very short period of time, and they brought their loved ones. I put them through the same steps I'd gone through. They got well. More and more people came, and
that is why you are here in this lifetime.
That was, and people say, would you go through everything again?
Well, would you?
Yes.
You would.
I would, because of the lives that have been actually saved and the pain that's just been turned off.
Mm. Well, that is the main thing, isn't it? And that goes back to what we talked about to start off with. Does it take quite a while to heal?
No. Like that man who'd been going to the psychiatrist twice a week for
16
more than a decade and a half. That was like from, I think it was Thursday session 1, the following Thursday session 2, which is where we turn off all the distress, and he saw his dad on the Sunday. So that was 2 sessions.
Wow.
And then the following week, we just made sure everything was done and created the future.
Right.
So it doesn't have to take long at all.
That will bring a lot of happiness and relief to a lot of people in my audience.
And it's not difficult. The best analogy for TRTP that I've ever heard is Tim Thomas, veteran commando. Tim was a client. He came back, he's since become a dear friend, and he came back from Afghanistan in a really non-functional. He couldn't drive a car. He couldn't go into a shop. He couldn't be with a group of people. And rage, nightmares, usual extreme PTSD symptoms. And he'd been to lots of therapy, and eventually a trusted friend suggested that he see me. And he came to me very cynical. 3 sessions. He used colourful language, Barry. Colourful.
Well, he would.
Being a commando.
And he's not going to say jolly gosh, is he?
No. And and I was on the Sunshine Coast. He was in Brisbane. So he drove about an hour and a half to see me for session 3. There was no need, because I do this on Zoom. But he wanted to prove that he could drive, because he hadn't driven for some years. So he drove, and he said, this was my experience of session 2. This is what happened. He said, when you got a laptop up, it's open, and you're trying to load a web page, and it's glitching, and that little circle's going round and round, it's thinking, and you think, is the internet out? No, I've got full bandwidth. I've got full power. What the heck's going on? He said, I didn't realize that I had every app known to man operating in the background, and I'd already loaded 30 or 40 web pages. Wow. And I thought I was trying to use 100% bandwidth, 100% power, but I only had access to 3 to 5% because of all this background using up all the bandwidth, all the energy. What happened in session 2 was you just turned the whole thing off, rebooted it, and all those background things were turned off, and I was back with 100% power and 100% bandwidth, and I could get in my car and drive. And all my symptoms were gone.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
I said, thanks, Timo. Can I use that? He said, sure.
I was wondering if it was okay to use on here.
Yes.
Oh,
He's
go
given
ahead,
his
Tim.
permission.
All the best. That's fantastic. Judith, you and I should talk. Well, we do quite often talk on the phone or whatever for a long time, but time is against us at the moment. But up on the whiteboard in your office, you have to deal with the current crisis with more fun. So how do you
Yes.
deal that? How do you deal with
Yes.
it through fun?
Well, yeah. So I have on the whiteboard, how do we deal with the current challenge with more fun?
Mm.
Well, we get together, whoever's working with me at the time, and we just discuss, how do we think about this that's funny? How do we, what are we going to call this? There was a recent time we went through where we were going through a lot of change in our organization. I said it's going to be difficult. So what are we going to call it? We called it the Bay of Boils. Because there's going to be lots of things happen.
Mm.
And so Blair would ring and say, yep, we've got another one. It's popped up to the surface. It's about to pop. So it just became funny. I wonder where the next boil is going to appear. It's just silly. I know it sounds ridiculous, but
it worked. That's the main thing. It
works, and it opens up the mind from shut down fear to more creative and certainly less stressful.
Mm. Yeah.
So more possibilities are available, and we are more resilient through it.
Mm. Yeah.
Humor is a wonderful thing. Fun is incredible.
And very, very essential.
Yes.
Yeah. Judith, once again, you have made me think so much, and I'm sure there are many, many people listening or watching will feel the same way. Thank you so much. And if people can get in touch with you, what's the best way?
If people want to deal with their distress, their stuff, their anxiety, overwhelm, and it doesn't have to be big catastrophic stuff. It can just be like that guy's abandonment issues that are impacting his
Hello?
with me.
I'm sorry, we froze then. We lost the last 10 seconds.
Am I back, Barry?
Yeah, so I'll take that question again. If people want more information, how do they get it or get in touch with you or whatever? Okay.
If someone is wanting to do their own work with me and deal with their own stuff, and it doesn't need to be catastrophic, it can be everyday overwhelm, abandonment issues, whatever, the best way to get in touch with me is through the website trtpclinic.com for one-to-one work, trtpclinic.com. If anyone's wanting to explore actually becoming a TRTP practitioner and doing the training to do this work and have the clients get well, it's trtptherapy.com, trtptherapy.com.
That's wonderful. Judith, thank you so much. And, I don't know what to say. I'll just say goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Barry.
You are fantastic. You've helped me so much in the past, and thank you so much. And all those people out there, I'm sure, are all saying, Barry, thank you for us as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Always a delight to connect with you. Bye.
Bye. Well, I promised you some fascinating stuff, didn't I? But I didn't take into account we're going to talk about the afterlife, past lives, and people visiting from spirit. A lot more there. So Judith Richards, absolutely a wonderful person. Been a friend for a while. She's helped me through lots of things myself. And also appeared on the program several times. Thanks for your company, and I wish you a very happy week, and I'll see you soon on radio out there. Bye now.